Hello, everybody, and welcome to Revisiting Disney. This is the series in which I pick an attraction or you pick an attraction every week, and I play Imagineer for a day and talk about how I would refurbish it, how I would replace it, how I would just basically be the king of Disney World. And it's all in good fun. Some of these attractions I do want to see change, but some of them I actually like the way they are, and I'm just having a fun, creative game made out of it. We are here in Future World. This is sort of where the series was born because I thought this place does not meet its full potential, and this is actually one of the areas where I think we could see some refurbishment, and it is the Seas with Nemo and Friends, or I guess the Living Seas if you want to be old school about it. Now, if you've never been, this is a pavilion. This is one of the buildings that I think earns the title pavilion because it's simply more than just an attraction. There are places to eat. There are more attractions inside. It's a bigger experience, similar to the land over there, but unlike things like Mission Space or Test Track, where it's just the one building. And so in order to, I think, properly revisit it, rather than just revisiting the attraction, the Seas with Nemo and Friends, I would be revisiting the entire building. Now, I've got two ideas. One of them is simple and short and sweet, and I'm going to save that for last. And the other one is dramatic and a complete overhaul and probably a passion idea. I'm actually recording this video for the second time because the first time I just rambled for too long because I just loved the idea so much. Now, that said, some of you are going to hate this idea, so get yourselves ready. I would like to take the Living Seas, that's what I'm going to call it, the pavilion, and I want to, one, get rid of the seas theme. Get rid of it. It's a great theme. It's cool learning about sea life, but I feel like there are more underrepresented portions of Future World that need to see more representation, that are more important for the future of humanity, and I think that is space travel. Space travel, space flight, space life, space everything. Now, you can argue we have Mission Space, and that should be enough, but I think Mission Space does a pretty poor job of representing the future of space flight in Future World. It's more like a thrill ride. It's not very deep or complex. It doesn't get you very excited for the future of space flight. It's a very shallow ride, in my opinion. And on top of that, it's just one ride. This is a whole pavilion. So let's take this pavilion and make it about space by turning the Living Seas into Brava Centauri, the space station from Horizons. Now, of course, that'd be in name only. There aren't a whole lot of details on Brava Centauri. That ride closed down a long time ago, and we only just saw a brief glimpse of it. But wouldn't it be cool to create a space station that you can escape to? Now, I love immersion. I love immersing myself in a whole other world. And look at this space. Look at the space you can play with. Whenever I look at this, I see a futuristic space station. I see fake storefronts, like the facades and little carts. I want it to look like a miniature city in space, and I think this would be a cool place to do that, and it would be a cool way to excite people about the potential futures of space flight and life in space, and it would be a cool way to teach people about not only the history of space flight, but what our near future and what our far future of spaceflight could offer us. Now, of course, being Disney, there's a story to everything, so this is the way I would frame it. I would take the Seas with Nemo and Friends, this ride here, which is sort of how people get into the pavilion, even though they could go in that way like I just did, and turn this into the introduction where you go from Epcot to outer space. This would be, sort of themed like a little starport where, you're going on vacation. Similar to, I guess you could say, Star Tours, or sort of the idea I had for revisiting Space Mountain. The idea is basically this is where you go to get ready to go on your trip. And you'd go through this whole long queue, and we're going to skip through it. And we can't actually ride the ride today. It's under maintenance. But I think the theme that I would want to point out here, and the key point, is that even though this is a ride where you are, theoretically going into space, this wouldn't have to be a thrill ride. Right now, it's a pretty slow ride. You get in the little clamshell Omni movers, and it takes you through, and you see Nemo and all his buddies, and it's a very calm ride. And I think this attraction, getting from Earth to Brava Centauri, could be equally calm, yet exciting in different ways. What this reminds me of course, the Omni Mover system from Horizons, where you can sit in this cart and use screens and other effects like that to sort of show you something. Now, if you're a video gamer, if you ever played BioShock, there's a sequence at the beginning in which you get into this sort of diving vehicle that, of course, I forget the name of, and bathysphere, I think it's called. And while you're diving underwater to the City of Rapture, it plays a little movie promoting the City of Rapture. Now, I want to steal that idea and say you get in this little pod, and while you're launching off from Epcot Center to Brava Centauri, it plays a little movie for you detailing the history of spaceflight, very briefly, Apollo, Mercury, those programs that were very real and very important to the current programs, NASA, SpaceX, things like that, all the way to the fictional ones that create this space station of Brava Centauri, and explains what Brava Centauri it is, why you're going there, how great it is, and maybe, just set the tone for where you're headed. So you get in that little ship, it shoots you up there, it shows you this little movie. It's, safe for all ages. You don't have to be worried about it being a thrill ride or anything like that. You could be old, you could be young, you could have kids. That way this is open for everybody to enjoy. And when you step off on the other side, you are in Brava Centauri, the actual space station in space. And I think that'd be super exciting to be in this little city. And as they go to catch up, we can walk around here. One, rather than walking out into this big, aquarium, rather than water, you're looking out into space. Maybe you see planets or spaceships, things like that. And the idea is all of this space that we use, there's so much space here in this pavilion. You use it to teach people about spaceflight, what it's like flying in space for real astronauts today, what it could be like in the future with technology. This future world, the whole point is to sort of show off what we could be seeing. You can use areas like this to create basically little space shops. I think what a good part of Horizons that really excited me was this idea of taking a brief look into what life in space might be like, right? And going on to Mission Space, it's a follow-up attraction. The most exciting part of that ride to me is the space station you see on the queue, because it's I love imagining what it'd be like to live in space. So wouldn't it be cool to take an area like this and re-theme it to look like, a sample model house in space? What would a house in space be like if you had zero gravity, or if you had artificial gravity, or something like that? I think that'd be a really cool way to explore it and get people excited for something that is going to be a very real part of our civilization's history going forward. Space travel is still happening. We've had a slowdown in recent decades, but I think it's really going to pick up, with things like SpaceX. And so I think it's important for us to get excited about and to learn about. And I think this is a great place to do it. As much as I do love Turtle Talk with Crush, we could do something else, just that really highlights it. And there's a lot of room for it. And then, of course, lastly, but certainly not least, let's head on over to this side. This pavilion has the Coral Reef Restaurant, which is a cool place where you can eat. Look, they're all looking for me in there. While taking a look at, sea life, which I guess would make some people guilty depending on what they're ordering. But wouldn't it be cool for this to be a restaurant in space? And you sit down and you see out here, you could use screens and high-tech effects to make it look like you're floating in space. And maybe you see Earth rotating below you while you're in orbit, or you see spaceships docking. I think that'd be a really cool theme to play with. I am totally biased. I love space. I know a lot of people aren't going to love this idea. I think people who love the ocean will hate that the ocean would not be represented in Epcot anymore if I did this. Although I say, let's take a little bit of that and put it in the land, because, right, the land, the earth, the sea, whatever, just make it the Earth Pavilion, right? That's just my idea. I think this would be cool as Brava Centauri. Now, that smaller idea that I mentioned at the head of the episode, that's like a simple one, is basically everything I just said, but make it about the ocean. Make it Sea Castle, which was the underwater base from Horizons, and keep it all about the ocean. But I think the space thing would be so much more exciting, and it would be such a cooler theme, and I would love it so much. So Bob Iger, you can have that idea for free. I know it's never going to happen, and there are realistic things to keep in mind. Of course, there's all that sea life you'd have to displace, so I don't actually think something like this is going to come to fruition. But, in my dreams and my imagination, this would be a really cool pavilion to have, and it would would make up for Mission Space, which I think sort of sullies horizons a little bit and sort of takes away focus from space that I think needs to be in Future World. Anyway, that's what I would do with the Living Seas. This was a much shorter version of the first time around I talked about it. I want to thank you all for joining me. Let me know if this is a horrible idea or if it's a great idea, if you'd rather see it do something completely different than space or the seas. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you have an idea for something you'd like me to revisit, feel free to leave it in the comments below as well. The only rules I really stick to is I try not to revisit anything I've never actually been on yet, so like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And a lot of people have been asking for me to revisit shows like Fantasmic or like Beauty and the Beast on stage, and those are tough because I'm not sure how I would go about that without like writing a script for a whole new show or a treatment for a whole new show, because you're not really going to put a ride there. But I don't know, I'll have to tackle that eventually because people keep asking for it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have a great week. Whatever you're doing, make the most of it because it makes it that much better. And I hope to see you all next time for the next episode of Revisiting Disney. Bye, everybody.